Do you think it's better to win ugly or lose beautifully? That's a question most sports movies just don't have the guts to ask. They're all about that last-second touchdown, a walk-off home run, or that buzzer-beating shot. They're all about that glorious trophy, baby. But that is not the case at all with Tin Cup.
You suck, you jackass!
Howdy, and thanks for clicking on this video to see what this jackass has to say. I appreciate ya. Released almost 30 years ago in 1996, this movie looks at our obsession with winning and says, yeah, that's cute, but have you ever tried failing in spectacular fashion? It's a film that argues that one perfect, transcendent moment, one beautiful act is worth more than any championship title. It's a love letter to all those stubborn, magnificent idiots who refuse to play it safe. Today, we're gonna celebrate the genius of Tin Cup. I'm gonna analyze how director Ron Shelton created a film that feels more real and raw than any modern blockbuster. Also, let's spill some of the secrets from the production that you probably haven't heard, and we'll break down the single most debated final hole in movie history. So get comfortable and crack open a cold one, because we're about to make the case for why Roy McAvoy's 12 on the 18th hole is one of the most heroic feats in all of cinema, if not the most frustrating. On the surface, Tin Cup has all the ingredients of a cliche 90s rom-com. A washed-up star, a beautiful woman, a smarmy rival, and it is cheesy and a little clumpy. But it's also something much more profound and a whole lot weirder. It's a movie about the sublime, glorious, and often idiotic beauty of going for it. Consequences be damned. So get yourself a bucket of balls and a warm beer, because we're teeing off on a movie that has held up remarkably well. First things first, let's get the scorecard basics out of the way. Tin Cup was released in the US on August 16th, 1996. It was directed by the undisputed master of the thinking person sports movie, Ron Shelton, who also co-wrote the script. This is the man who gave us Bull Durham and White Men Can't Jump, so he knows his way around a jock with a complicated inner life. Our star of this film is Kevin Costner playing Roy Tin Cup McAvoy, a former golf prodigy who now owns a ramshackle driving range in the middle of nowhere, West Texas. He's joined by the impossibly charming, if not a little stuck-up, Rene Russo as Dr. Molly Griswold, a psychologist who wanders in for a golf lesson, and Don Johnson as David Sims, a slick, top-ranked PGA pro, and Roy's personal nemesis from his college days. And we wouldn't be doing this film justice, we absolutely cannot forget the film's secret weapon, Cheech Marin as Romeo Posar, Roy's caddy, business partner, long-suffering best friend. In a nutshell, this movie's essentially about a washed-up golf prodigy, Roy, who falls for a brilliant psychologist who just happens to be dating his slick corporate sellout rival. And of course, his only logical solution is to stop drinking beer for 5 minutes, qualify for the US Open, and win the whole damn thing to steal the girl. What seemingly follows is a stubborn and often idiotic quest for one perfect shot, culminating in a legendary final hole where he must choose between winning the game and winning his soul. And when you're watching this movie, the plot really does seem straightforward. A down-and-out athlete tries to win the big one to get the girl from the bad guy. It's a formula as old as time. But I think Tin Cup uses that cliche as a Trojan horse to sneak in a much more interesting and frankly more honest character study. More than a game, a character study of a glorious loser. Roy McAvoy, not to be confused with Rory McIlroy, is not your typical cinematic hero. He's a gifted athlete who squandered his talent living in a beat-up Winnebago and spending most of his time drinking beer with his buddies. He's a guy who, as Roger Ebert put it, is unshaven, creased, weather-beaten, and in need of a bath. For most of this movie, he is, for all intents and purposes, a bum. But he's a bum with a philosophy. The movie isn't really about winning the US Open. It's about Roy's mythic quest, not for a trophy or money, but for a moment of transcendence. He's chasing what he calls the tuning fork moment, that perfect shot where everything aligns and a tuning fork goes off in your heart. This film's entire argument is that this one perfect feeling is worth more than any victory. And I think this is where the movie separates itself from the pack. It really is a film for adults. There are zero special effects, very little plot, and a lot of people just sitting around talking smartly, funnily, and with a refreshing amount of profanity. It has this lived-in, comfortable feel that you can just slip right into, something that you rarely see anymore these days. Behind-the-scenes shenanigans. Now for some little known facts you can use to impress your friends at the next movie night. It's hard to imagine anyone but Rene Russo as Molly, but the role was initially offered to Janine Turner, and then Michelle Pfeiffer was also approached. For the part of the smug David Sims, the studio considered Dennis Quaid, Pierce Brosnan, and even Alec Baldwin before Don Johnson landed the role, and you know what? He made it iconic. Costner's swing. So to his credit, Costner didn't just phone it in. He trained extensively with professional golfer Gary McCord to learn the game and develop a believable swing. I've played golf since I was a little kid, and going back and watching this, you can really tell. McCord's even listed in the credits as a golf consultant and has a cameo in the film. What's in a name? And that title, Tin Cup. So this was inspired by the old vulgar expression, not worth a fart in a tin cup, which honestly is a pretty perfect description of how Roy feels about himself at the start of the movie. Alright, so we gotta talk about that elephant on the 18th green. The ending. Roy is on the final hole of the US Open with a legitimate chance to win. All he has to do is play it safe, lay up, and he'll be a champion. But the words play it safe are not in Roy McAvoy's vocabulary. His rival Sims lays up, it's the smart play, the winning play, but Molly, who now understands him better than anyone, tells him to go for it. So he does. He takes out his 3-wood for a 230-yard shot over a water hazard, a shot that history and good sense says he shouldn't take. He also hit it in the water 3 straight days before that. And he hits it again, right into the water. Splash. The crowd groans. Romeo begs him to take a drop, play for a par, and salvage what he can. But Roy's possessed by his own demons, or as Molly calls it, his inner crapola. He drops another ball in the exact same spot and he hits it again. And again, and again. Each one eventually finds its watery grave. It's a magnificent, beautiful train wreck. Finally, on his very last ball before he's disqualified with the whole world watching this spectacular collapse, he swings, and it goes in. The hole. The crowd erupts. He's carded a 12 on a par 5, blowing the US Open in the most epic fashion imaginable. He loses, and he loses badly. But you could tell he doesn't really care. He got his moment. He made the impossible shot. Let's be honest, this ending is absurd, frustrating, and arguably the dumbest golf strategy in the history of the sport. But I think it's the only way this movie could have ended. Roy wasn't there to win a trophy. He was there to prove something to himself. The act, not the outcome, was really the point. He loses the Open, but he wins Molly's heart, and more importantly, he finally makes peace with himself. It's the most crowd-pleasing loss, I think, in cinema history. So in the end, Roy McAvoy doesn't get his name engraved on a trophy. He gets a 12 on the scorecard. He is, by every objective measure, a loser. He walks off that green with the girl, the roar of the crowd, and one hell of a story. And because of that, I think Tin Cup's a cinematic unicorn, a movie that understands that the most heroic act isn't always winning, but having the guts to fail on your own glorious, stubborn terms. It's a messy, profane, and profoundly human tribute to the idea that how you play the game really is all that matters. It's a movie that doesn't just hold up, it feels more necessary now than ever. If I were a ranking man, which I am these days, I know this movie had a mixed reception with both critics and fans, but I would give this movie a solid B. The dialogue crackles, it's excellent. The performances are solid, and it sucks you into the magic of the 90s. It just has that certain feel that movies don't have anymore. Yeah, it's frustrating, it's cheesy, it's clumsy, and certain parts just go on too long with very little outcome. But otherwise, Tin Cup is a relic of the past. It's a movie we don't see much these days anymore. But I want to hear from you. Get down in those comments and answer the ultimate question. When you're standing on the 18th hole of life, are you laying up or are you going for it? And while you're there, what's another movie about a glorious loser that you just absolutely love? If you had some fun today, do me a solid and hit that like button. Subscribe for more deep dives into the movies that matter, and ring that little notification bell so you don't miss what's coming next. I really appreciate you watching, and remember, sometimes the prettiest number on the scorecard is a 12. As always, the opinions in this video are mine and mine alone, but what do I know? But a mere jackass. I'll try to do better next time. Catch you later, friends. I'm just a jackass of all trades, don't know shit. I'll keep on talking, acting like I'm so legit. From politics to sports, I'll spout